14 years. And, whoops, sorry. I am one of those that struggles with technology. I'm not a climate expert, subject matter expert on the climate by any standard, but I have worked, as Rick said, I've worked in solid waste management across Northern Virginia for 30 years, and I hope you find some of this information useful. I don't get asked to speak at groups like yours very often, so I didn't have something lying around. So you're going to have you be a little bit of a guinea pig here, and I cobbled together a few things, but I hope you'll find it interesting and at least a good conversation starter. So the Solid Waste Division is the agency responsible for waste management in the county. We operate the 1,000-acre Prince William County landfill, which is shown in the top photo. It's in the Independent Hill area of the county off 234. And that facility handles the majority of the county's trash. We also operate the Balls Ford compost facility, which is shown in the photo on the lower right. And that facility was recently upgraded. You can see some of the improvements there. And that manages all the organic materials in the county. The landfill was permitted in '72, and the compost facility opened in the mid-90s. The Solid Waste Division is also the agency responsible. In addition to solid waste planning, we also are responsible for oversight of trash collection. I'll talk more about that later. But the essential things that we do are operating those two facilities. So this is a simplified version of waste management in the county. The county coordinates the overall system, but what's unusual about the system in Prince William County is many of the parts or components of the solid waste management system are private, they're run by the private sector, which, that's not the same everywhere, but it is the case here in Prince William County. I mentioned we operate the landfill and the compost facility, but most of the recycling, the two main recycling facilities in the county that process single stream recycling are both privately operated. All the trash in the county is all privately collected, and the majority of it is handled by about 15 permitted haulers. But then we also have about 75 private recycling companies that come into the county and pick up a wide variety of materials. About 65% of the county, the waste generated in the county is disposed of in the landfill. And that inched up during COVID. It used to be closer to 60%, but we went up a little bit during COVID. About 29% is recycled, and the remaining amount is processed at the Covanta Fairfax Waste Energy Facility in Lorton through an agreement with Fairfax County. And that's kind of the high level how it works system. So some of the current, so I know you're interested in diversion or recycling programs, and I'm just going to, we can talk more about these later. I'm just going to kind of do a high level overview right now. And we'll hit more detail on some of these, but these are some of the current recycling diversion programs that we currently operate in the Solid Waste Division. As I mentioned before, all collection is handled privately. So these are all basically drop-off programs. There are some programs where we do a little bit of collection, like we have 16 recycling drop-off centers that are scattered around the county, and you still have to drop it off at the location. We also operate some Saturday collection programs, drop-off programs too, for trash and recycling. But generally speaking, residents have to bring it to a county location for the service. Our two main recycling facilities are the landfill and the compost facility. Those are kind of like our super recycling centers, if you will. Now, some of these programs like scrap metal and appliance we've done for many, many years, and others such as food scraps and glass are relatively new. So in terms of what's new in Prince William County, the big story in Prince William is the expanded Balls Ford compost facility, which opened, I think it opened in the fall of 2020. And we were previously a windrow compost facility, and we could handle about 40,000 tons a year. It was a 9-month composting process, but we found a partner in Free State Farms, and Free State invested a significant amount of resources to upgrade that facility at Balls Ford, and we now have the capabilities to process not only all the yard waste in Prince William County, but yard waste from other surrounding jurisdictions as well. So that allowed the county to join the rest of Northern Virginia recently and add yard waste collection. We were the last county in Northern Virginia to do that. And so we're just starting this journey. The program started October 1st. And now that it started, it runs March through December of each year, and also includes Christmas trees during the first 2 weeks of January. And so we had kind of a perfect little opportunity starting in October to kind of get a 3-month feel for what it's like. And it wasn't perfect, but we kind of got through it. And now we started 2 days back up again. And so I'm hoping that we can get more participation, get more people on board with this program. It has a huge benefit to the county, approximately 10 to 15-year extension on the current landfill cell permitted capacity. And also the benefit, I think what you all might see as a benefit is less yard waste going to the landfill, because yard waste can contribute to greenhouse gases in the landfill. So that's probably the biggest news for the county. And this is the county's diversion rate has been largely stagnant for more than a decade. And this will finally start moving the needle on diversion in Prince William County again. So for that, I'm grateful. Another program that I'm pretty excited about, and this is a great story here in Northern Virginia, but glass recycling. Aside from the 10 deposit states, most glass bottles have not been recycled since the waste industry shifted to what's called single stream recycling in the late 90s. Glass and single stream do not mix well. And when glass goes into these modern processing facilities, it generally comes out too dirty to be used by the glass industry. And so the vast majority of it winds up going in the trash. After years of trying to work with the glass industry and the recycling processors, Prince William, along with Arlington, Alexandria, and Fairfax, and now other jurisdictions, Loudoun, Stafford, I believe, have joined in. We created the so-called Purple Can Club, and we didn't invent the idea. We stole it from got the idea from the Ripple Glass program out in the Kansas City area. And the idea is basically to set up bins, drop off bins for just glass. As I mentioned before, the glass is going into the recycling facilities heavily contaminated. The material that comes out of the glass material coming out of a single stream processing facility, it can be anywhere from 40 to 60% glass. Our glass coming out of these purple bins is, for the most part, it's 95% or higher clean glass. So it's very high quality, and we have started to begin marketing glass after a long dry spell. And in Prince William alone, we moved about 530 tons of glass, which is not a lot. We only had 2 sites for much of that year. We now have 4 locations, but I'm excited about the prospect of glass recycling again for the first time in a long, long time. And I think it's a testament to what we can do when we work together too in the region. So This is only for food and beverage container glass. It doesn't cover things like drinking glasses, cookware, cups and plates and that sort of thing, which still have to go into the regular trash. I'd be remiss if I didn't say something about plastic. I could say a lot about plastic, but I'm just going to go over just some real basic stuff. But how many of you, and you don't have to show your hands, but have seen these codes on plastic containers or packaging, and you saw the chasing arrows and the number, and you said, I'm good, it can be recycled. Well, that's what a lot of people do. And unfortunately, those numbers do not always mean that the numbers really refer to the type of resin used to make the packaging. And then so there's 6 different kinds, and then number 7 is other. So it covers a lot of other different types of plastics. What's exciting, so generally speaking in this region, it's 1s and 2s that can be recycled. We've seen recently some market improvements for number 5, polypropylene. But generally speaking, the processing facility.
Rick, you muted. Scott?
It's Scott.
It's Scott.
Yeah, I'm muted.
Yeah, I couldn't hear Scott. I'm sorry. I didn't know if everyone.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, just for a sec.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now still?
Yes.
So this How to Recycle was developed by an organization called Green Blue in Charlottesville. And unlike the plastic recycling symbols, which were more for industry, the How to Recycle is intended for consumers. It covers more than just plastics. It covers paper and metal packaging as well, and also glass. But it gives you very specific instructions, more details about how to prepare it and whether it is recyclable, or whether it's something you have to ask your local government of whether it's recyclable if it's a questionable material. So I would encourage you to get to pay attention, and when you're in the grocery store, and look for this How to Recycle label and to read up on it, as it can be a good way to help you navigate and avoid what's called wishful recycling, which is when you just put something in your recycling bin that you hope will be recycled or wish it would be recycled, as opposed to whether it's actually recyclable. So another new thing that's going on right now in Prince William County is we're working on our solid waste management plan. This is a 20-year plan. The last time we did this was 2004. The plan will lay out the county's vision for our solid waste programs for about the next 15, 20 years. Solid waste has retained a consultant, SCS Engineers, who has been working for almost 2 years on the draft. We were a little bit slowed by COVID. And we have our standing solid waste advisory group that's been working through a lot of the key policy questions for the plan. So this is sort of the process that we've been going through that's shown on the slide. And the next, what might be useful for you all is the next few days, I anticipate that the draft plan will be posted to our website for general public comment. The plan will have an official public hearing before the board approves it. But prior to that public hearing, we want to get as much input on the plan as we can. So our plan is to post it on our website for about 30 days where folks can review it. There'll be slides similar to these, and a public comment form if you wish to comment on it, as well as some other materials you might find interesting. So once that's up, it'll be on our rules and regulations page on our website. So, and I'll try to get a copy of the slide deck to you all that can be circulated to members. So in terms of the changes to the plan, these are sort of the things that haven't changed. The overarching goals of the plan, the big picture, that really hasn't changed. I didn't want to go through all of those, but I just wanted to, that the core, kind of the plan at its core is the same. The planning area, which is still the county and the 4 incorporated towns, is the same. And then it's both plans are 20-year planning horizon, and both included public participation. So in that sense, they're the same. What's new in the plan? There are a lot of new initiatives. Some of these are projects that we're currently working on, but we're not in our solid waste management plan, such as what we're calling the eco park. It's the kind of looking at the landfill not just as a landfill or a disposal facility, but looking at it more as a community resource for education, environment, and energy production. So that's sort of the concept. We borrowed that concept from Rutgers University in New Jersey, and we've been working on this with Virginia Tech and other universities such as George Mason to try to develop this concept further. Then there's other programs that are new, such as increasing diversion for construction waste. We get a lot of construction waste from small contractors at the landfill. The landfill is not a construction landfill, but there are some processing facilities in the county where we might be able to divert that material and keep it out of the landfill and extend the landfill. The division believes that a lot of these new initiatives are going to be what's going to advance our solid waste program to the next level here in the county. And so we're hopeful that groups like the Faith Alliance will rally around some of these initiatives when the plan reaches the public hearing. In terms of public participation, I mentioned that the plan is being developed with our Solid Waste Advisory Committee group. We're also planning on soliciting input from private refuse haulers, incorporated towns, property managers, Chamber of Commerce, and organizations like Faith Alliance. As I said, there'll be official public hearing associated with adoption by the board, but we want to try to get as much input as we can between now and that public hearing. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time. The next few slides that I have are some slides that I presented on legislative opportunities a few years ago with the Northern Virginia Regional Commission, which I thought your organization might be interested in. These are some of the issues, the waste policy issues that I work with through the Northern Virginia Regional Commission to try to resolve. These are typically hard to handle or difficult to handle materials. One of the challenges in working in local government is we're not allowed to advocate for legislation, and I don't know what your limits are within your organization, but we have to be very careful with that. So we typically focus more on legislator education and developing policy white papers and fact sheets on various issues to try to get before legislators. So these are some of the issues that I see as being some of the either low-hanging fruit or just good issues to kind of hitch your wagon for new initiatives going forward. The first is marine debris, and marine debris, of course, covers a lot of different materials in the ocean, and we've all heard about the garbage patches that are floating in islands of garbage, floatable plastics and other debris in the oceans that kind of make these huge islands around the world. Much of that is, as I said, is plastic. But if you it includes things, marine debris also includes things, wildlife ingestion, entanglement, what they call ghost fishing, where the nets are left down in the waters and animals or marine wildlife can become entangled in them, or vessels, they can become vessel damage or navigation hazard. There's a number of issues with marine debris. For us, I look at the top some of the top marine debris materials in Virginia. And so, it's a lot of things you see on the ground too, just regular litter, but a lot of those materials are materials, packaging, food and beverage packaging, and other common things that you see in the environment that I think you can do something about. And we're starting to see this, of course, across the country. And I'm sure you've talked about a lot of these things where they're having, you can certainly do more education, but we're also seeing, just to make people aware of these types of things and how they are finding their way into the waterways. But there's also, we're starting to see more ordinances. Virginia had, we tried to do something on styrofoam here in Virginia. There's some discussion or a bill, I think, to delay that implementation of the polystyrene, I think for food service containers. They're talking about delaying that, but we're seeing some of those. We did get a plastic bag tax, but it's a local bag tax, and several jurisdictions in Arlington and I think Fredericksburg and City of Roanoke, and there may be others in the state that are looking at that around the state. So that's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be a statewide one, but it's certainly going to have a difference in those local governments that choose to implement it. There's also things like bottle redemption, container redemption, or bottle bills, which could be implemented. We saw a few proposals this year in the General Assembly for that, as well as we saw a few extended producer responsibility laws, which is it's legislation affecting specific types of packaging that may be a problem in the environment. And they essentially, what extended producer responsibility does is it instead of relying on the scrap value of commodities to pay the way, the cost of recovery and the recovery scheme is sort of built into the packaging, the cost of the product. So it's paid up front when the purchaser buys it. And so at the end of the life, there is a plan for that material. Another one that I mention often is paint. This is a real head scratcher for me. Paint is a big problem for local governments. About 65 million gallons of paint sold in a year in the US goes unused every year. Much of that unused paint winds up at household hazardous waste programs, similar to the one operated in Prince William County. We spend on paint, I don't know the actual cost of paint, but the paint is often a large percentage of the cost of household hazardous waste programs. I know we spend about close to $500,000 on the chemical side to our household hazardous waste program. The electronics has an additional cost to that program, but paint is recyclable, and the American Coatings Association has established a national stewardship for paint called Paint Care. 10 states, including the District of Columbia, have passed paint stewardship legislation to adopt Paint Care. And so basically it works, like I said, for the packaging, where when you buy a can of paint in those states that have adopted Paint Care, there's a cost added in for the recycling of the paint, and that money goes into a fund that funds a collection system and also the processing of the waste, the unwanted paint. So, and those programs are pretty well run in the states that have them. And I think we saw a bill in Maryland this year. I don't know where it is in the General Assembly, but I'm hoping that at some point Paint Care will come to Virginia. It'll save local governments a lot of money. there's 95 counties in Virginia, but I think there's only 50 household hazardous waste programs. So a lot of that paint's going into the landfill. As it is, it can go into the landfill legally. Homeowners can put it in the landfill, but in small quantities. But I don't think we want that in our getting in with our groundwater. Another one that's a big one is electronics in Virginia. Electronics. Thankfully, the amount of electronics generated has been going down for the past 4 years or so as electronic devices get smaller. Virginia is a state that this is one of the few extended producer responsibility laws we have on the books in Virginia. I think it's the only one right now. Our electronics bill was a so-called Dell bill, which was written by Dell Computer. And so it excludes performance goals or convenience standards. It doesn't cover televisions, for example, and other electronic devices. So as a result, Virginia has historically been at the bottom or close to the bottom in terms of electronic waste performance of a e-waste stewardship program in the country. So the good news is there's an organization out there, Electronics Take Back Coalition, that studied the states that are doing where electronics recycling is working well, and they published a paper on the 10 lessons learned from those states. And the coalition also has established model state bill for the manufacturer take back of electronics. So there is some material to work with to try to improve this bill. Another one you're hearing a lot about is packaging. There's been some action. We saw, as I mentioned, a little bit of action here in the Virginia General Assembly already. But there's been a lot of discussion at the national level on packaging. Both national bottle bills and extended producer responsibility programs have been discussed. There's also been alternative programs of grant programs to try to increase education on recycling and that sort of thing. But I see a lot of energy on this one, mainly driven by the brands. There are a lot of brands out there that have sustainability goals, and I see them driving this more so than government in the coming years. And so I suspect that the tide will finally start to turn on this one as the brands are under quite a bit of pressure to change things around. Containers and packaging account for about 30% of municipal solid waste generated in the US. Yet less than half of these materials are recovered. And that if you add it up, and this is a few years old, but you added up the value of these wasted products, it's a very, very large number. So, and I mentioned, container glass being one of them, that 90% of container glass is wasted in Virginia alone. So this is an area where I think a lot can be done. I'm not going to read over that so much. So, we can continue to work with organizations like the Recycling Partnership, Keep America Beautiful, and Closed Loop Fund to try to improve packaging recovery. Organizations like the Rick's Bottle Bill organization, a great way to try to bring some new change for packaging in the Old Dominion. So these are just, those are just some of the ones that I work with through the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. In addition, we also, to paint and glass and electronics, we also work on issues like batteries. Batteries are causing a real problem, particularly lithium ion batteries. They're causing a lot of fires at solid waste management facilities. You may recall the really bad one we had at Lorton at the Covana Waste Energy Facility a few years ago that shut that plant down for almost a year, I believe. There was also another one at the Dickerson, Maryland plant, and there's been a number of them a number of smaller fires at the area recycling processing facility. So battery safety is a real concern and battery recovery is a real concern, yet only there is a take back program for rechargeable batteries, but they make up only about 15% of the total batteries that are out there. Pharmaceuticals, there's the issue with we don't, people flushing those down the drain and the problems that they cause to aquatic life and the environment. So there's also issues of when they get into the wrong hands and what can happen with the welfare of people in the community. So we want to try to take those back, and other states seem to be doing a better job at making it more convenient to have drop boxes throughout the community where pharmaceuticals can be brought back. So that's something I'm just starting to see that through some of the drugstore chains like CVS in Prince William County, but we have a long ways to go on this one. I think the police department recently announced too that they're going to place them at each of their stations, which was that'll be a big improvement for the county. Glass, we talked about extended producer responsibility, but we also provide information, policy information about material recovery facilities. These are the industrial facilities that process the containers and paper and packaging that's collected from our homes and businesses in the community. And we also are increasingly focusing energy on tires. There's been a lot of change in the tire management in the region, and we're concerned that tires may start to become a problem again. And both the tire and litter grant funds have in the past been used as a bank account to fund other programs in the government, and we want to make sure that those funds stay devoted to what their intended purposes were for. But I have this link at the bottom of this slide where you can go and you can see all of our policy fact sheets. We also prepare a list of annual policy issues that our members in the region here in Northern Virginia feel that the elected officials should be working on. So with that, I think I'm done, and you all have been very patient listening, and it looks like we have a few questions.
That was wonderful. And there are a lot of questions, and Rick's going to, I think, mediate them.
Yeah, I'm still here. So I'm just going to read them off the chat, Scott. So I don't know if you want to kind of follow along on that. The percentages on the recycling for Prince William, in general, that was what, 29%?
29%, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are you getting rid of the plastic bags for yard waste?
Yes. Well, we just started a yard waste program, so we did not want to start plastic bags. Plastic bags are hated. They're hated by landfills. They're hated by compost facilities. They're hated by recycling facilities. They need to go to grocery stores to be recovered. If they go to grocery stores, then the grocery stores backhaul those to their distribution centers, and then the Trex Corporation, which makes a composite decking material from plastic bags and other film like stretch wrap. And there's a lot of cabinet manufacturers in and around the Winchester area, and they get some of the sawdust and mix it in and make this composite lumber that is a beautiful decking material. So that's a great story here for Northern Virginia. But yeah, take the bags back to the grocery bags, that is, back to the grocery stores. In terms of the yard waste, once the plastic gets in there, it's very difficult to get it out of the compost. Our processing partner, Free State Farms, does the best they can, but you'll always have these really tiny pieces in there if the bags are allowed to go in. So yes, we ask people to put their yard waste in a biodegradable craft yard waste bag. You can also use a personal can labeled for yard waste, and we will provide you with a yard waste decal at our 2 facilities at no charge.
Yeah, you're lucky you avoided that one. Yeah. Can non-residents of Prince William County use your landfill and compost facility?
So yes, but generally certain residents. We focus mainly on the residents within Prince William County. So we have the 4 incorporated towns, and then we have the 2 independent cities. The county solid waste system is funded by a solid waste fee, which is paid on real estate tax bills. Homeowners pay a set amount based on the size of their household. Businesses pay on either their waste generation amounts or an estimated amount that we calculate for them. So but unfortunately the towns did not adopt that solid waste fee structure. So when they come in, they can use the facility, but they have to pay a user fee when they come in. And so and then because we're the only landfill in the area, there's 2 in Northern Virginia, but we also take materials from the city of Manassas and Manassas Park, similar to the 4 incorporated towns, and they also pay the user fee. But we don't generally take materials from other jurisdictions unless it comes in from the other jurisdiction, if that makes sense. So like we take deer carcasses because we're one of the few landfills in Northern Virginia. So there are other jurisdictions where the public works crews pick up roadkill and that sort of thing. They can't take that to the waste energy facility. They'll bring that to our landfill. Yeah.
Okay, so just to follow up there, if we in Fairfax, we take something, we have some yard debris to get rid of, and we take it to the transfer station. I'm under the impression that from the transfer station, Fairfax hauls it to Free State. Is that right?
They haul it to, there's Free State is one of 2 compost facilities. The other one is Loudon Composting. They're near South Riding area. And so I believe Fairfax kind of divides it up between the 2, or depending on where the load originates from.
Oh, okay.
Is where it goes. Because they have, traffic drives everything in the region, the traffic flows. So I think it's, they have these routes set up for those big trucks. So I think it's just where the load originated from, what the traffic situation is at the time of the day when they're pulling it, that kind of thing, as to where it goes.
Yeah, it's all about traffic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any sense of the proportion of glass that is put into the purple bins? There was.
It's been a while since I've looked at that. I have calculated. It's not great. So I think I told you we did 500. And I want to say that there's something like 8,000 tons out there. And I could be wrong on that, but I want to say it's a fairly large number. 8 or 16,000 tons comes to mind as to how much is out there. So we have a long ways to go. What I can tell you is that we started collecting glass in 2019, and after 2 years, it was like the third highest material with just 2 drop-off centers. So now we have 4. We have as you saw in our new solid waste initiatives, a plan to expand the number of glass sites we have. So I'm hoping that we can bring those closer, because it's nobody wants to haul glass a long ways, and I understand that. And we told folks in 2019, we said, if you can't take it to the purple bin, then put it in your trash, because that way it goes directly rather than going through the recycling facility and contaminating other recyclables. So we gave them 2 alternatives.
Do you know if the recycling that goes to the MRFs, is that still contaminated by glass or?
It gets, yeah, when the glass gets broken, it, you know, if it doesn't break when it gets to the plants typically break it. And so the glass winds, so you get the glass breaking, it gets those little shards get on the paper, which the paper industry doesn't like. And probably some of the other so, you know, commodity associations don't like having glass on their materials, but I think in particular paper didn't like it. And I think that's one reason why a lot of the paper from those facilities was exported to China. When we saw in 2018, 2019 that got disrupted, you know, that kind of upended recycling around the world. But that's why we tell people not to put it in the blue bins. If you can't put it in the purple bin, put it in the trash.
Okay,
It's better off because it's going to go there anyway.
okay, the technical question. Can you differentiate polypropylene from polystyrene?
No, not really. I'm not a chemist. Plastics is super complicated. But you know, each of those materials has different properties. The Society of Plastics Engineers, sometimes you'll see those charts that have the different physical characteristics and whatnot of the different containers. I've often wondered why do they have to have so many different types of plastic? But if you look through that, it sort of makes sense. You know, they each have their pluses and minuses, but you know, I know you know, number 6 is polystyrene and polypropylene is number 5. What I can tell you is polypropylene's trading at about 15 cents per pound, and styrofoam is probably negative 3 cents or something. It's not positive.
Okay. How do you, as a county, then get your information to the households as to what can be recycled? Because that is just a big problem.
It is a big problem. And it's not just Prince William County that struggles, it's the whole region. After the Chinese waste import restrictions in 2017 were announced, and we saw everything kind of get turned upside down in 2018, the region, the council, Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments established a recycling marketing committee, and we're still continuing to meet with the local governments and the main processors in the region. And I'd say early on, one of the discussion points was about plastics recycling. So I made a lot of friends by going around to try to move the discussion along. I went and looked at 18 local governments' instructions for plastics recycling from throughout the Council of Government members. And out of those 18 localities, how many different sets of instructions do you think there were?
I'd say 16.
There were
Yeah.
18. There were 18 different sets of instructions. No two were alike.
Yeah.
And so I assume that happens all across the country. But I can tell you that, and I don't have the prices right up in front of me, but you know, your translucent milk jugs and water containers were trading at about 60 cents a pound and thereabouts. The colored ones, which are like laundry detergent bottles, are trading I want to say 40 cents a pound or something thereabouts. PET was about 15-20 cents a pound, which is your number 1 containers. And then 3 through 7, 1 through 7 and 3 through 7 is all negative. As I mentioned, polypropylene is trading about 15 cents a pound.
Yeah.
So there is some market for that. But I'm told that you know, these processing facilities, they need truckload quantities to send. So it, I don't know how long it takes them after they bail up all those yogurt and margarine containers. I don't know how long it takes them to get a truckload full of bales. It just may, it may not be really worth it to them, and they may just send the 3 through 7s downstream at a loss. But I'm always worried, because a lot of what happens in recycling, when you have a system that's based on the scrap value of materials, is you get to where they skim off the valuable stuff, and then they dump the low value stuff as little as possible. And my fear is that low value, when they get rid of that low value plastics, that has probably contributed to a lot of the plastics that are in the oceans in one way, in one manner or another. That's just my worry.
Right. So moving on to the next question, that where does the trash get separated from plastics? The MRFs that the big haulers that you have?
Yeah, so trash doesn't get separated at all. The only thing that what you put in your trash goes either to the landfill or the Fairfax Waste Energy Facility in Lorton. The only thing that's going to get pulled out is if there's loads. We both facilities have weight screeners. They're required to have screeners that monitor the incoming materials. And so if we see something like a tire or a compressed cylinder or a television or something of that sort, that'll get pulled out, because for health and safety reasons, we don't want those materials to cause harm to the environment. So we'll pull that out. But otherwise, whatever you put in the trash goes into the landfill. It's going to go into the waste energy facility. Likewise, whatever you put into the recycling facility will go to the recycling facility. But if you're not paying careful attention to what the facility wants, and a lot of people don't, about 20% of what that goes into the recycling bin is actually garbage. Comes back to the landfill in the form of residue. We get, the heavy residue, which can be the broken up glass and, little bits of metal and plastic and other organic material. And then we also get the light stuff, which is like a lot of the film and light plastics and things that they're not able to market or move.
Okay. So let's switch gears here for a sec. What are the top few policies that we can emphasize to get close as possible to zero waste?
That's a good question. Very good question. I don't have an answer right off the top of my head, but as I mentioned, there are. I don't think we're ever going to get to zero waste, but if you have some kind of a stewardship program for a material, I think you're going to get a higher return than you would otherwise get if you didn't have any type of recovery scheme for the material. If you look at something like battery recycling in Virginia, where that's not a great example, but we don't have a lot to go on, but a fairly high percentage of batteries are recycled in Virginia. And I'm talking about lead acid batteries. On the other hand, the waste stream always changes, and automotive industry is going through a transition right now over to hybrid and electric vehicles. So now we're seeing these lithium-ion battery packs come in from these hybrid and electric vehicles, which we're not really set up to take. Those, a standard car battery is typically 12 volts. These hybrid and electric vehicle batteries, they can be 450 to 850 volts. You have to have lineman's gloves to handle those. And our staff is just not set up to handle those. So those have been coming into our facility for years. And so, we've been advocating through the Northern Virginia Regional Commission to take a look at the state's 1989 Waste Management Act, which addressed a lot of materials, tires, litter control programs. You remember those six-pack rings, those plastic six-pack rings that were outlawed?
Mhm.
Next time you go through the grocery store, look at all of them on the shelves. They've returned in big numbers, and not only that, they've invented new ones. And so they're back in full vengeance, even though there's a law against them, because nobody is really enforcing the law on that one. And so it's not just about coming up with a plan, but also somebody to make sure that the plan is enforced too. And that's what's needed. All of our as I mentioned, solid waste changes over time, and what things that people are generating, changes over time. So we need to have, and that's why I suggest, and the Northern Virginia Regional Commission has suggested what's called a framework extended producer responsibility law. Under a framework law, it kind of just sets up the system for how you decide what's going to be managed. Essentially, they'll do a study every year. You'll have some agency do a study every year on what problem materials you're having in the waste stream, and then they can be added or deleted administratively, as opposed to having to go through the legislature. The framework law would get adopted by the legislature, and Maine has done this, Oregon's done this, there's other states and provinces in Canada that have done this. Mexico City has this, or parts of Mexico. Other places like and there are many other countries around the world that are using this type of system, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't really taken hold here in the States yet. It's particularly widely used in Europe. But this way, you can have a system where instead of our law, where we passed a law in 1989, and then it requires legislation each time you want to change the law or adjust what those materials are. We need a better plan in Virginia. Our plan is just very dated.
Yeah. Okay,
I
we
hate
have,
to do this. I think
That's okay.
I just realized that the time has gone so fast and there's so much information. Clearly, we could go another hour, I think, with all the questions. I wonder.
If you send me the questions in a chat, I'll try to, if you can send those to me in an email, Rick can get the email to me, and I'll try my best to answer them and get them back to you all.
That would be great. That would be absolutely super. And again, we can't thank you enough for your time tonight and all the information and all the things to think about. So much to consider and how we get to zero waste. Thank you for all you're doing.
I really appreciate the work that you all do, because we cannot do that work. And as far as I can see, there is no organization, or there are very few organizations that can do what you all are doing in terms of advocacy. Without somebody pushing these issues out there, nothing is going to change. So I really applaud the work that you all are doing. And I, will be happy to do whatever I can to help you all.
Well, thank you again. And everyone, please, stay for our very short business meeting.
Yeah, I'm good. I've had a long day. I'm going to check out today and go spend some